Hey everyone, my name is Dillon Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director of GeekVibesNation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast. And welcome to a brand new episode of No Streaming Required, your weekly deep dive into all the latest and greatest in the world of physical media. Welcome back. We have another fabulous show for you this week, full of some of my favorite labels. I'm going to be talking about releases from the Criterion Collection, Era Video, Shout Studios, 88 Films, Warner Brothers, and more. There's a lot of stuff I'm really anxious to get into, so the best thing I can do is just dig right in with one of my favorite movies from 2024, and that is the Blu-ray release of A Different Man from A24. I wish this was a 4K release, but I guess beggars cannot be choosers because I'm just glad that this got a physical media release at all. Because it's a very special movie in which Sebastian Stan plays a character who has a genetic condition which causes him to grow tumors on his face, similar to this character played by Adam Pearson, who I'll talk about here in a second. But Sebastian's character is kind of very kind of a sad sack, feeling bad for himself type, and just always kind of blames kind of his basically his kind of his life and his where he's ended up in life on how he's looked and how people respond to him and stuff. And one day a character played by Renata Reinsve moves into his building, and he kind of develops a major crush on her. And he, at the same time, he comes to learn about a procedure that can apparently shrink his tumors and make him look more how he always envisioned himself, which is looking like Sebastian Stan. But once he undergoes this procedure, instead of getting everything he ever wanted, there is a new guy in town, played by Adam Pearson, who looks very similar to how he used to look, and he starts basically snatching up all the opportunities and stuff that he thought he could get now. And he is auditioning for a play that is perfect for this kind of genetic condition. He starts dating the Renata Reinsve character, who he thought, who Sebastian's character thought he would never be with him because of how he looked. And it's just really a kind of a look at how we view ourselves and kind of the limitations that we put on ourselves may not actually be reflective of reality, and how we hold ourselves back a lot from maybe getting what we want due to just like not having the confidence in our own situations and stuff. And it's really a lot about how we view ourselves and our confidence in ourselves and stuff. And while this may seem like kind of emotionally kind of dense or manipulative or cloying, it's very darkly funny, and it's very kind of like it makes it just filled with a lot of like comedic regret in terms of how characters are approaching their lives and what the bad decisions they make in order to try to get stuff like from the like better from their lives, and how that usually backfires on them. And this is all done with a very really, really good performance from Sebastian Stan, which it earned him a Golden Globe Award. And it's very internal, but it's a very kind of he guides this very complex character from beginning to end very well with a lot of nuance. But at our discovery of the movie is Adam Pearson, who plays this new guy in town, who's very charming and stuff, and should have been nominated in his own right, I feel, for like an Oscar or something this past year, because he really steals away the movie and just really kind of shows you how your outlook on your life really determines a lot of how people respond to you and everything. And I think this movie is very funny. But like in a very sophisticated way. It's not really like puerile humor or anything, but it's really darkly funny and just kind of like very intellectually satisfying look at these kind of dense or these rich themes that are kind of relatable and very much appealing to my sensibilities and stuff. And I really, really like this movie. I thought it was one of the better movies to come out of last year, and I am really appreciative to own this on Blu-ray. It looks very nice. It's not the most colorful film or anything, but all the colors are saturated really well. I didn't notice any banding or anything like that. No, it's a newer movie, so you're not going to get any like nicks or scratches or anything like that. It's just like a nice, clear, detailed presentation on Blu-ray that looks very, very nice. And you have a Dolby Atmos track, which is very immersive and everything. It's not the most action-packed movie or anything, but whenever you're on the city streets, you do kind of feel immersed in that three-dimensional space, which I do think really helps with feeling a part of this kind of environment. You also get some special features, including a commentary track, a featurette, some deleted scenes. Overall, it's a really nice, well-rounded package from A24. So if you haven't seen this movie, I believe it's streaming on Max if you need to sample it, but it is very much worth adding to your collection. So it's a good one. So A Different Man, with Sebastian Stan, very much worth adding to your collection because it's a really, really special one. Another new movie from this year. First, I want to note, at the end of pretty much every episode, I say if anyone ever has any suggestions to let me know, and I'll cover it on a future episode. This was suggested in a recent comment, and I want to highlight that I am covering this because of that. So I follow through on my promises. If anyone ever wants me to cover a title, just make sure to leave a comment on Reddit, Facebook, on the YouTube channel, anything. I will do that, which is why I'm covering from Paramount the 4K Ultra HD release of Novocaine, because some nice person recommended this to me and thought that I might like it, and they were right. It's a fun movie starring Jack Quaid as a man who has a condition where he cannot feel pain. He's a very kind of introverted type character who works at a bank, and he's really kind of reserved in his lifestyle until one day a girl that he has recently started kind of a relationship with who's a coworker, gets kidnapped by some bank robbers, and he has to kind of track her down and try to get her back and save her. And his inability to feel pain really feeds into the thrust of this narrative. So it's a very violent, straightforward, pretty action movie where this person who, like I said, cannot feel pain is put through the ringer, and there's a lot of very uncomfortable moments that will make you wince. But it's also really darkly hilarious a lot of the time. So if you like a similar mood to something like Crank, something kind of over the top but very funny and action packed, I think you will appreciate Novocaine. Sure, there are some kind of plot things that don't quite mesh perfectly. It's a fun enough ride that you can kind of forgive it some of its shortcomings just because Jack Quaid is a very charming lead. And Amber Midthunder, who is his romantic counterpart, she is fantastic. If you've seen her in Prey, you already know she's amazing, but she does a really, really nice job in here, and there's a lot of great supporting characters as well. So if you just kind of want a really zippy, fun time, Novocaine, I think will scratch that itch. Also, if you want a stealth holiday film for later this year, this also takes place during Christmas Eve, so that's also a plus for me who loves holiday films. So I was really glad to check this one out on 4K. I do want to note that Paramount has seemingly switched to the tradition of, if they are releasing a 4K, I don't think they're releasing like a standard Blu-ray release as well. So if you want this on Blu-ray, I think it is only available as part of this 4K package. So you will be future-proofing. If you just want the Blu-ray, you can pick this up, watch the Blu-ray that's included in here like I showed off. But also have the 4K ready whenever, if you ever upgrade to 4K, you will have this disc. But if you can't find a standalone Blu-ray release, that is why. That's what Paramount's trying to kind of slim down the amount of different formats that they put out. And as someone who advocates for 4K as much as possible, I'm glad that they are not sacrificing like a 4K release. They are embracing it and just like thinking that anyone who's going to want really good video quality is probably going to want to get 4K. So I recommend the 4K release. There's also a Steelbook version, I think might be exclusive to Amazon, which I don't have, but it also looks pretty cool. But this 4K release is really nice. It comes in Dolby Vision. Terrific, nice, bold, bright colors, deep black levels. Everything looks nice. No blown highlights. Everything looks really great. Atmos track kicks a lot of ass. It's an action movie, so you really want a really hard-hitting, immersive experience, and that's what Novocaine delivers. In terms of special features, not loaded. There's like 3 brief featurettes, but that's something. So yeah, if you want a funny, action-packed time, Novocaine, it hit the spot for me. Hopefully it will do the same for you. And I thought this was a good recommendation. So check this one out from Paramount. Keeping things a little bit more lighthearted, I'm going over to Shout Studios and their new release of Strangers with Candy, the movie, as part of their Shout Selects line. This is a prequel to the hilarious Strangers with Candy series, in which you have Amy Sedaris, Stephen Colbert, Paul Dinello, and another kind of a rich array of people that ran that series. I believe ran for 3 seasons. I'm pretty sure I own all 3 of them on DVD. It's been a while since I have watched the series, but watching this movie really made me want to revisit it, because it is a prequel, but which is usually kind of glossed over in like the kind of opening of the original series. It's kind of a subversion of like after school special type television, or like television movies, in which Amy Sedaris plays a woman who has been away at prison for many years and just really has lived a hard life. She's been a user, boozer, and loser. But she gets released from prison, comes back home to learn that her father is in a coma, and she thinks in order to help him get out of his coma, she should kind of pick up where she left off back whenever she basically fell out of school. So she goes back to school to try to graduate and everything. And along the lines, she meets a lot of colorful characters, but she herself is a pretty colorful character, irredeemable at times, but still very, very darkly funny. A lot of inappropriate and non-PC jokes are made by Jerry Blink, our main character. But it's something you kind of have to embrace, because it's a knowing kind of subversion of like what is expected, and it's just really saying some of the most like ridiculous off-color things, because this character is terrible. It just kind of turns it on its head in a pretty amusing way. Overall, I did like the movie. It seemed to, from what I remember, it recycles quite a few jokes from the original series. So not everything may feel fresh, but there are, I think, enough unique jokes to this one that is still very much worth checking out for fans of the show. There's also, you'll notice like some bigger names for this movie that kind of like perk things up in terms of like Philip Seymour Hoffman, Allison Janney, Sarah Jessica Parker, Matthew Broderick. And yeah, it hits a lot of the major notes from, it feels like kind of a longer episode of the TV series, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because I do really love the TV series. It might be a little bit better than the movie itself, but the movie itself is funny. And I'm glad it finally came to Blu-ray from Shout, from a new 4K scan of the 35mm interpositive. It's a very, very nice restoration. Everything looks good. I didn't notice any lingering scratches or nicks or anything like that. Nice consistent colors. The grain seems pretty evenly resolved, and everything looks kind of very natural. Nothing looked off to me, and I think the only drawback I think some would find is that this is not a 4K release, but I just think it is such a niche title that maybe Shout thought that a 4K release wouldn't make sense. But this is a nice Blu-ray release, and I'm glad to have it. It sounds good as well. DTS 5.1 audio, and you have a commentary track, an archival commentary track, some deleted scenes, and a music video. So if you're a fan of Jerry Blank and Strangers with Candy, you can easily add this to your collection. Maybe not like the safest blind buy if you're not into kind of like more off-color jokes, but sample Strangers with Candy, the series, however you can, and if you like it, pick up this movie. And hopefully one day the series will also get a Blu-ray release, because I would love that. My next film also deals with some family drama, but in a very different way. I'm going over to my first Criterion Collection title, and we have Kenneth Lonergan's drama, You Can Count on Me, with Laura Linney and Mark Ruffalo. I have wanted to watch this for so long, and this hasn't had a proper Blu-ray release, so the fact that it's getting a 4K release, like a 4K upgrade, made me very happy. I didn't have to wait for that, just jump straight to 4K. And I will show off the booklet, because I love, anyone who's watched this show knows that I love a good emotional, character-driven drama. That's basically what I live for, and that's what this is. Linney and Ruffalo play adult siblings who, whenever they were younger, they lost their parents in a car accident, and now Laura Linney is a single mom to a young boy, and Mark Ruffalo is the kind of screw-up brother who has been away for a while and has come back into town and starts to integrate himself into their lives. And while he is there, he starts to bond with his nephew and starts to kind of like bring him more into like kind of his kind of free-spirited way of life, while Laura Linney has recently got a new boss played by Matthew Broderick once again, and she kind of has some work drama as well, as well as some other dramatic threads with like the unresolved issues between these siblings and stuff. There's a lot going on, and some good, very, very good actors in here. This is a film by Kenneth Lonergan, who, if you're not familiar, you may have seen Manchester by the Sea with Casey Affleck, and if you've seen that, you know it is very dramatic, and this also has some very dramatic beats as well. Not quite as dramatic as Manchester, but it's very emotional and a lot of talky, dialogue-driven moments that I love. When just you have great actors just let loose to just dig into really rich exchanges. I love that. So I, of course, loved You Can Count on Me. It's completely my jam. So if you're into more like very, very well executed like adult dramas, this is one of the best that I can remember seeing in a while, and very much made me very happy. So the 4K release, as I said, was a welcome introduction to my life because it is from a new 4K scan of the 35mm Enter Positive. It looks fantastic. It has been supervised by director Kenneth Lonergan. It is in Dolby Vision with DTS 5.1 audio. The Dolby Vision presentation looks very nice. There's a lot of foliage around and stuff that looks really nice, and it just really saturates very well. It's nothing looks unnatural. Everything just looks really great. The DTS 5.1 soundtrack is perfectly good. All the exchanges come through clearly, no shortcomings or discrepancies or deficiencies. In terms of special features, you get a commentary track, you get some new interviews with most of the main talent, including Lonergan, Ruffalo, Linney, and Broderick, and you get a trailer and everything. So bless Criterion for bringing this gem into my life finally. Glad to finally have watched it, and it did not let me down. So if you've been waiting for it, the Criterion Collection's done a really, really nice job on this one. So make sure to check out You Can Count on Me. But this is not the only knockout release from the Criterion Collection this month. We also go back to the 1950s with a dark-hearted film noir from Fritz Lang. We have The Big Heat on 4K Ultra HD. I talk about film noirs pretty frequently on this show because there was a ton of them back in the day, and boutique labels know that they will sell well usually. And this one is one of my favorite that I've seen. You have Glenn Ford as a detective who is investigating the shady business dealings of a local gangster, and it leads to some very dramatic confrontations and impacts on his life. And it leads him to getting in league with one of the gangster's girlfriend, played by Gloria Graham, in order for him to kind of seek revenge and take down this really shady businessman. You have also Lee Marvin as one of the lackeys in one of his early roles. He does a really great job. And it's just a really nice, well-rounded cast, just digging into this material and really like pushing against like the most that the Hays Code censors would probably allow. There were things that had to be cut from this, but even what was left in, it's very kind of aggressive and like just very bleak in terms of the narrative, but it's so well done. And so if you're a film noir fan, this is an essential one in my opinion. And the Criterion Collection's done a really nice job. This is a new 4K restoration courtesy of Sony, who's always one of the best in the business. They did a 4K restoration of the 35mm original camera negative with some instances of the fine grain master positive utilized in some short sections. Everything blends together quite well in Dolby Vision, and everything looks pretty much perfect. You will, like I said, not notice any difference between the two film stocks or the two film elements. And the Dolby Vision, make sure you have incredibly deep blacks, no blown out highlights, excellent encoding. Everything looks really, really great. You get a LPCM 1.0 mono soundtrack. You get a new commentary track. You get a video essay. You get some interviews. Overall, just a really knockout release for the big heat from the Criterion Collection. If you're a film noir fan, this is definitely one you should add to your collection. My next title, I'm going into a few titles from Arrow Video. The next one is really exciting because I know I have a lot of action fans who watch. So I'm here for Cobra from Sylvester Stallone. This movie is absolutely ridiculous, but it is a lot of fun. And like Novocaine, is another stealth Christmas movie. So if you celebrate Christmas in July like I do, you are living pretty with Cobra, in which Stallone is basically acting in like a Canon Films level action feature in which he's just like the tough cop who you don't want to, like the criminals don't want to meet in a dark alley because he will blow them away. He is trying to protect a woman, and there's cult stuff going on. There's a lot of wild stuff going on, but he's Cobra and he will save the day. It's really ridiculous, over the top, but it's played very straight. So some have called this a little bit humorless, but I found myself laughing some. So it's very streamlined. It's under 90 minutes. And I think a lot of people were hoping to get like the fabled director's cut for this one, which there is a longer cut of this movie, but I don't think it's exactly what people had hoped. But it's not even really certain if any material exists for this fabled director's cut. But what we have here, this Cobra as it's always been seen, it's very fun, like I said, very ridiculous and over the top. But if you're just wanting kind of a mindless action film with Stallone just kind of in like his prime, Cobra, that it'll do it for you. And in terms of this 4K release, this was previously released on Blu-ray by Shout Studios. This is from a new master. It's a new 4K restoration of the original camera negative, and you could scarcely get better. It's nearly perfect. Very bold colors in Dolby Vision, but everything's natural. I think previous releases, which I don't have, but from what I can tell, were a little bit magenta pushed in the color palette, but this seems a little bit more natural, but everything is very deep and nuanced in terms of the visuals. And I don't think anyone who's been wanting the perfect release for this will be disappointed with Cobra. You have several different audio options, including a 5.1 option, 4.0 option, and the 2.0 stereo option. So All these sound quite nice and serve their purposes for what they're trying to achieve and what elements they are using. Everything sounds very rich and full and powerful in terms of like whenever gunshots are being fired. Those hold up very well. Packed with special features, 3 commentary tracks, a TV version of this movie in standard definition. So this comes from an old print, I believe, which actually looks pretty solid in terms of like a standard definition print, but it's more for like the curious. It's about 7 or 8 minutes longer than the theatrical cut. And with it being a TV version, there are things that are like language and stuff that's edited, but you do get some unique material that wasn't in a theatrical cut. So that's at least a little bit more incentive. You do get some visual essays, some interviews, tons of interviews. Overall, this is the ultimate release of Cobra. If you have love in your heart for this one, in all of its cheesy glory, this is the ultimate release, and Arrow Video has done a really, really nice job with it. I can say this about most of their releases, including the next one, which is a Blu-ray release of the Nightwatch Collection. These are Danish films, and the first one, which Nightwatch from the 90s, stars Nikolai Coster-Waldau, who people probably best know as Jaime Lannister from Game of Thrones. He plays a student who gets a job as a night watchman at a morgue, and creepy things start happening. When he does, there's a serial killer around, and he starts to become the prime suspect in this. And he kind of has to work in order to clear his name, and there's a lot of really disturbing, creepy things happening around this morgue, and there's a really nice reveal at the end that will kind of recontextualize some things for you. But things pick up many years later, a couple of decades later, with the sequel, which I believe came out in 2023, which is Nightwatch Demons Are Forever, in which it is kind of similar, in which this character's daughter gets a job at a morgue like her dad did, and kind of tries to, which this is the reversible cover art, which is underneath the disc, and tries to get an understanding of what her dad went through. And there's also some newer developments in terms of creepy things happening and deaths occurring. And Nikolai is also in this one as well. So it's a lot more about kind of like lingering trauma and dealing with that and how it manifests itself in future generations. Everything just works quite well in terms of like a sequel that came 20 plus years after the original. This actually justifies itself pretty well. It's not as good as the original Nightwatch. There was also a remake of this starring Ewan McGregor from the late 90s, which is not included in this one. But I hear it's not the best, but I would definitely watch it whenever I get the chance. But for these two original Danish films, this is a really interesting series. It's very effective, very creepy. I think this is one that, while it may not be as like intense as some horror fans may want, I think if you want a nice thrill during the upcoming Halloween season, these are definitely two movies that I think will enhance the mood. And I will probably be revisiting that during that time as well with my wife, just to kind of creep her out a little bit as well. So the Nightwatch Collection, really, really good work from Arrow Video, because these are new HD masters provided by AMC, because this was the second film was produced by Shudder and RLJE Films. So they gave the HD master from that to them, but I think they also at the same time remastered the original Nightwatch. I don't know the exact elements they used or anything like that, just as an HD master, but it also, the 90s film looks really nice. It's been restored very well. No lingering damage or anything. Everything looks very nice and consistent. This is a pretty dark and shadowy movie, but nothing really as any shortcomings are noticed in terms of banding or macro blocking or anything like that. Everything holds up pretty well. The new movie, it's a new movie, and it holds up just as well as you would hope it would. And there's also quite a few special features, including on the first one, we have a commentary track, a 28-minute making of featurette, an interview, an appreciation piece. And then on the second disc, the sequel, there are 3 visual essays. And yeah, everything just sounds great, looks great, and very interesting. So the Nightwatch Collection, Era Video has knocked this one out of the park. So you can get 2 really good films in this collection. And finally, for Era Video, we have the body horror masterpiece from Larry Cohen. We have The Stuff on 4K Ultra HD. Now, this is one that I've been anxious to watch for a while. I know this one got a lot of talk whenever The Substance came out last year, because a lot of people were comparing it to The Stuff. But I found The Stuff to be a blast. It's critiques of consumerism and just kind of the culture in which this came out in the 80s. Just really worked overall. It's a brilliant satire of just excess and how, just like from the opening, whenever you just have someone just scooping a gooey substance off the ground and eating it, and then everyone deciding that it's the preferred new dessert, and how it kind of infects the population in terms of everyone wants this stuff. And it's kind of like the ice cream replacement in terms of popularity. And while no one really quite knows what's in this stuff, what soon begins to happen is people start getting impacted by the stuff. I'll say, I will try to reserve spoilers, but it is a body horror movie, and the stuff is not something that should be ingested, I'll just say. And there are some skeptical people that try to help bring that under control throughout. And there's a lot of really interesting, funny commentary about like the ice cream industry like dying, and trying to hire someone to investigate and bring down the stuff. It's a really, really interesting, funny movie, and I'm glad to finally see it on 4K. So we have disc 1, we had the theatrical cut and features and special features and stuff. And the second version, the second disc is the pre-release version, which I believe is exclusive to the limited edition. So don't let this get to the point where you're picking this up later when there's only a standard edition, because I think you'll be losing out on a really valuable special feature, which is the pre-release cut. So I have some things to say about this stuff. It's 4K release. It looks really good, but there are some issues. This does come from a 4K restoration of the 35mm original camera negative. In terms of like the Dolby Vision and the color and everything, it looks terrific. It's really bright, bold colors. It all kind of looks fantastic in terms of detail. Every kind of goopy moment looks its best. Nice saturation, no compression artifacts. Everything looks nearly perfect. What seems to be an issue, from what I can tell, is there seems to be some moments that have been misframed. I believe this was an issue also on the previous Blu-ray release that people were hoping would be fixed after some Lakeshore titles were fixed upon their re-release, like Hellraiser 3 on 4K. And it is said that the upcoming release of Creepshow 2 is also going to fix some of its misframings from the previous Blu-ray. It just doesn't seem like the stuff was given the appropriate attention to composition, where everything is framed exactly how it should be. I'm not sure if there will be any kind of replacement program or anything. It's definitely watchable, but the fact that it's not as perfect as it should be is definitely a disappointment. I understand for a lot of fans who have been waiting for this for such a long time and hope everything would be perfect. Some people probably won't be distracted by a little like slight shift like in framing, but it should be correct, and that's a little bit of a disappointment. But outside of that, it's a really, really nice restoration. I just wish it could have been like completed to perfection. And it does come with the mono track, which sounds really great. But I think what is important to mention before I talk about the other special feature is that pre-release version, which I think if you get this release, may be your preferred version. This was my first time watching this stuff and then watching the pre-release version. And I think there's a lot of very valuable footage inserted into this. It has been remastered by Arrow Video. It's not presented on 4K, it's just Blu-ray. But it holds up so well, and the additions are so interesting. Like I said, I think it might be a lot of people's preferred version because there's like at least 30 minutes of extra footage in here, which, while the brevity of the stuff in its theatrical form keeps things kind of zipping by and doesn't allow you a lot of time to get bored, the fact that Larry Cohen was forced to cut a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of connective tissue that makes things a little bit more thematically rewarding. I think that is a very valuable thing to have the pre-release version in such a good quality. Yes, there are some minor things here and there that keep it from being like a reference level presentation, but this was never intended to be released. But Arrow Video has restored it in a very nice way, which does have the correct framing to it. Which is a little bit of a slap in the face. So you can get one framing right, but not the other. But this pre-release version, it's making its debut here, and it's so great and such an incredible addition that I think that even if it's not a perfect 4K release, having this new cut of the movie that people like sought after for so long, I think this makes this a pretty essential release, in addition to some of the special features, some new and some brought over from the previous Blu-ray, including multiple commentary tracks, feature-length documentaries, interviews, tons of interviews, and just all kinds of stuff in here. More extras than you can shake a stick at. So overall, the stuff, I wish I could say it was a 5-star release, but with the misframing, it seems like a little bit less than perfect, but still a terrific release from Arrow Video in terms of the special features and the master and everything. Looks really good. So if you're a fan of this stuff, I think this is worth checking out. Hopefully we'll get a replacement program for the misframing, but otherwise this is a really, really good release. But staying in the realm of body horror, we have the Flying Lotus's latest directorial effort, the recently released Ash, which is a sci-fi body horror film, like a body horror thriller, in which Aiza Gonzalez plays a astronaut who wakes up on a base where her and her team were trying to find a habitable planet to terraform, but they end up coming across a alien parasite that basically wrecks their world. And throughout this narrative, our main character, she's trying to kind of remember what happened. She kind of wakes up with a little bit of amnesia, and she starts to try to piece together what happened and what led her to waking up in a scene of carnage where all of her friends are dead around her, and whether or not did she do this? Did someone else go crazy? What exactly happened? And she meets a mysterious guy who just doesn't quite remember, played by Aaron Paul, and there's a kind of a lot of mystery behind that. Overall, this movie's a bit of a mixed bag, but I did overall like it, especially in terms of Flying Lotus's output, which I've talked about Kuso in the past as a partner label title from Vinegar Syndrome, and I had a hard time with that one. This one is much more straightforward. It's very gross in terms of like body horror gore and everything, but it doesn't have a lot of the other gross elements that I struggled with his previous features. But what I think people might struggle with this one is it takes a long time to get going, and probably at least like 45 minutes or so of just like flashes of gore and everything, and interesting things happening and discovery and trying to remember and stuff. And it's a lot of building atmosphere, which I appreciate, that movies take time to kind of immerse you in their setting and build things up. But I think this needs to zip by a little bit faster, or be a little bit more interesting in the build up to the bonkers finale, which really delivers on the promise of its premise, and I think will be enough for the gore hounds and horror fans to really embrace, but they might just struggle a little bit with the journey to get there. But overall, I think this is a solid movie, and it is worth a watch for horror fans. This Blu-ray release looks nice. A lot of shadows and dark like spaces and everything. There's a little bit of banding here and there, but nothing that's terrible. If it ever did get a 4K release, I think this would be very valuable to this because there are a lot of interesting colors and stuff in this as well. But overall, a really solid Blu-ray release from RLJE Films. You get some interviews. You get with pretty much all the main members and the director. You get featurettes. You get a making of documentary. You get a behind the scenes featurette. DTS 5.1 sounds fantastic. Overall, good release from our RLJE of Ash. A little bit slow, but overall worth it in the end. Heading over to our friends at Altered Innocence, we have the Serbian drama Lost Country. This is an interesting title, but first I want to talk about, I was a little bit surprised by this release in terms of, this is one of the very, very rare instances. I think this might be the first Altered Innocence title that I've purchased where this is a burn disc, manufactured on demand disc. I haven't had that happen with Altered Innocence before, so I was very shocked to that. So if you have issues with burn discs, just be aware. I'm not sure if all copies have burn discs, but as far as I know, from what I've seen reported, I think other people also receive burn discs. So that's a little bit of a disappointment for Altered Innocence, but the film itself, it's worth checking out. It's a very kind of a drama that makes you question your like how you respond to certain situations, because basically this young boy, he's living in 1990s Serbia. There is a basically totalitarian regime that is trying to keep democracy from thriving, and what he doesn't know is that his mom here is basically the mouthpiece for that totalitarian regime, which is oppressing the people and trying to steal elections and all kinds of stuff. So it's basically like, what if one day you found out that your mom was like a force of evil in this world and oppression, and basically the whole country is suffering because she is giving voice to the people in power, and how you deal with that and that reality. And it's not perfectly handled in this narrative, but overall, I find it very engaging, and some of the questions it offers up, it really had me thinking, and I appreciated what this did. It's a little bit slow at points, but overall, really great performances, very thoughtful camera work, a lot of lingering shots on like people walking and stuff, and if that's not quite your speed, I understand. But if you kind of like a more contemplative drama where you're wrestling with your own morals and ethics and stuff, I think Lost Country is definitely worth checking out. In terms of the Blu-ray, it looks really good. I'm not exactly sure. It looked like it was maybe shot on 16 millimeter. It has a very kind of gritty appearance that it holds up very well on Blu-ray. The original Serbian soundtrack in 5.1 audio. You get a trailer, but nothing else really in terms of special features. So pretty sparse and in terms of like special features, but overall good AV quality for this movie that is also pretty solid. Another international drama we have from Cohen Media Group, Black Tea. This was a movie I was very interested in based on the premise, because I love kind of food and drink driven drama, like anything where characters are dealing with food and we're connecting them to emotions. I'm all about it. So this features a young woman who at the beginning of the film, she's from the Ivory Coast. She seemingly walks out on her wedding day from her husband, who she has no real desire, who has recently cheated on her, and she has decided she doesn't want to kind of settle for this life of complacency. And it kind of jumps to a different time where she is now in China, and she's kind of established her life in China, and learning like a lot of their rituals with like different tea practices from this gentleman who's a little bit older than her, but you see a lot of these tea rituals that is like very spiritual and really connected to character and emotion stuff. And they start to have a romantic relationship, which is fine. I'm cool with that. But where this movie starts to lose me is there's a lot of plot threads outside of this woman that are given a lot of time, and they don't always seemingly make sense. As this movie goes along, I was very confused slash astonished by some of the directions as this took narratively. I just didn't understand why characters were making certain choices or why the director was focusing on certain things. It seemed to get away from what the movie started as and how it evolved. It was a very frustrating watch. I could see glimpses of a really good movie in here, but it just really was a narratively frustrating experience. So I found it to be kind of a disappointing watch compared to how hopeful I was whenever I embarked upon it, because it seemed right up my alley. But overall, if it sounds interesting to you, maybe check it out, but just keep your expectations in check, because it really goes off the rails and just really doesn't land how I wanted it to. And I know a lot of people that I've seen reviews wise also kind of felt the same way. But this one, it has a good Blu-ray release. A new movie, HD transfer, looks great. Sounds good as well. In terms of special features, you have the Berlin Film Festival press conference. Looks really nice, or is very interesting and special feature. But overall, I can't recommend the movie itself wholeheartedly, but the Blu-ray release is good for Black Tea. If you're a fan of this movie, it's a good Blu-ray, and it would be worth adding to your collection if you are already a fan. Going to a documentary from Kino Lorber. We have one that I really loved. It is The Wild Parrots of Telegraph Hill. This is a documentary from the early 2000s, and it is about some wild parrots in a San Francisco neighborhood, and it's kind of not complete, like there are theories about why these parrots ended up in this neighborhood and how they kind of become a staple and is being taken care of by this kind of one eccentric gentleman. He doesn't like house them. They're wild, but he kind of helps them along sometimes and has like named them and just tries to take care of them whenever they need extra care and everything. And through this process, you get to know this gentleman, you get to know a lot of these parrots and their individual personalities. And it's a very like heartwarming, sometimes heart crushing movie. But just, I love a good animal documentary, and then all the personal stuff with the humans is also interesting. I loved it. I love a good documentary, and this is one of like kind of the lovingly bizarre ones that I really appreciate. So this has been remastered from a 4K restoration. It looks terrific. It's a nice Blu-ray release. Everything looks nice and filmic, and it hasn't been scrubbed of detail or anything. Sounds great as well. This is just one of the great like nature documentaries, and definitely worth, if you're a documentary fan, definitely check this one out. It's a lot of fun and very rewarding as a film. And you get some good special features, including an archival commentary track, outtakes, updates, deleted scenes, interviews, short films. Overall, packed with good special features. The Wild Parrots of Telegraph Hill. I loved it. If you love documentaries, you'll probably love it as well. Another one from Kino Lorber is a new restoration, 4K restoration of a 70s movie, I believe. It won the Camera d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival in 1979, and it is the release of Northern Lights. This is a period piece that kind of takes a look at early farm life, and kind of the plight of farmers to try to combat the industrialization of farming and trying to rally for state assistance in terms of like different farming techniques and stuff. I can't really dig into the nitty gritty because I'm not a farmer, and I had like a kind of a tenuous grasp on what these workers were fighting for. I was aware enough to understand that these characters were fighting for a better life in terms of setting themselves up for success whenever industrialization has a way of kind of phasing certain ways of life out, and these farmers unionizing and trying to fight for themselves. It's mostly non-professional actors who do quite a nice job. There's a romantic subplot that doesn't dominate the movie, but does give it a little bit of a more of emotional heft. I found this to be a very interesting kind of look at kind of like early 20th century, late 19th century life, it seems to be. And I was quite intrigued by it. And this Blu-ray is nice. Like I said, it's from a new 4K restoration of the 16 millimeter elements. And it looks really, really nice. Black and white holds up very well. Nice contrast. Everything looks really, really good. The sound holds up pretty well as well. No major popping or damage or anything like that. Everything is very consistent. You get a commentary track for this one, and a trailer. But overall, Northern Lights, really good release from Kino Classics as usual. Going even further back in time to the 30s, 1938, we have the from Film Masters, Algiers, with Charles Boyer and Hedy Lamarr. This is part of their limited edition archive collection, and compared to some Film Masters releases I've talked about recently, this is a pressed disc, so not a burn disc, thankfully, a pressed disc. I wanted to check this out mostly because I do like Boyer and Lamarr. And this seemed pretty interesting, in which Charles Boyer plays a character who's like a notorious thief who is hiding out in the titular area, and there are some authority figures trying to hunt them down, and he's trying to evade capture, but he comes across a woman played by Hedy Lamarr, who starts having a romance with him, and he kind of tries to wrestle with what he should do in terms of staying underground to try to keep away from the authorities, or let himself kind of try to come out and face some consequences and everything. And there's a lot of intrigue and kind of melodrama throughout, but overall I thought it was a pretty solid 30s melodrama, especially if you love these love these performers. Very much worth checking out. This Blu-ray release comes from a 5K scan of a 16 millimeter print. So this is from a print, so it maybe isn't quite as crisp and clear as maybe certain things we've seen from the Warner Archive, where we usually deal with like an inner negative or an inner positive. This is from a print, but even from a print being restored to that level, it's been handled very well. There are a little bit of softness that you would guess when you're dealing with a print. But overall, this looks really, really nice for the elements, and no major damage or anything like that. Minor things here and there, but it's a really respectable job on the part of Film Masters. Audio, likewise, is a little bit hollow and stuff, but from a movie from the 30s, you can kind of forgive it that. You get a new commentary track. Very informative, not as special features packed as some of their archive collection releases, but still some effort put in here to make this look as good as possible. And I'm really glad this was a pressed disc, because I think this film it's pretty special and it deserves it. So Algiers from Film Masters, worth checking out if you're a fan of these performers and you like kind of old school melodramas. Going more towards Asian cinema, kind of in the last few titles, the first of which is definitely Asian cinema. It's from 88 Films, and we got Detonation, Violent Riders. So here we have director Teruo Ishii, who did some of the prisoners of Abishi and the Joys of Torture. Like, he does a lot of like exploitation films that I am not personally into, and this kind of leans a little bit into that area, but it's a little bit better for me than some of his like straight up torturing women movies. But there's a little bit of that, like a little bit of violence against women in this one. But here you can kind of see the cover art here. You got Sonny Chiba in a minor role here. So yeah, you can kind of see how things are definitely a little bit exploitative, even with that back cover. So here you have a motorcycle drama, and basically in which a aspiring like motorcycle racer gets kind of all caught up with, but like torn between a woman who is the girlfriend of like a pretty notorious gangster, and who is interested in him, and there's like the good girl, like kind of like who's outside of this whole kind of scene, who is attracted to him, but her brother, played by Sonny Chiba, does not want her involved in this, and it's all kinds of drama. There, like I said, there is violence against women and a lot of like naked women throughout. Like, they're just like one of the earlier scenes, you just walk into like a party where basically everyone is naked. It's like a naked party, and you just go through there for a while and you get tons of nudity. It definitely earns like its exploitative stripes. But as it goes along, this movie mostly isn't for me, but I do like some of like the motorcycle stuff and like the push and pull between like the different romantic factions and stuff. Overall, if you like exploitation cinema, and especially specifically motorcycle exploitation, I think you'll like this one. If you're kind of like more squeamish when it comes in like violence against women and stuff, maybe check out of this one. It's not his most intense of that kind of genre, but there's still some of that in here. This comes from an HD presentation, looks pretty solid, no major damage or anything like that. Everything holds up pretty well in this transfer. The original audio sounds great. You get a commentary track, you get a video essay. Overall, 88 Films has done a nice job with this director and these stars. It's a nice release for this one. So check it out if it sounds interesting to you. And then my final two titles is technically set in Japan, but these are, you'll see. We have the 4K Ultra HD releases of Batman Ninja and Batman Ninja versus Yakuza League. So I'll start with the first one, Batman Ninja, which I believe came out in 2018 originally on Blu-ray and is now getting the 4K bump. And I had never seen this one before, but this was done in an anime style by a Japanese animation team, in which Batman is kind of transported back to kind of feudal Japan through an invention created by Gorilla Grodd, and he kind of has to try to figure out his way how to get back, and while facing off against a Joker and Harley Quinn and all kinds of like baddies who are back in Japan. And it's kind of hard to dig into this movie because the plot of this gets pretty insane. And that's not even just because there's like a sentient, like super genius gorilla. There's all kinds of stuff going on in the back half of this movie, especially where you're kind of like, wait, what is happening? Because trying to parse the plot of this, it's an anime. So a lot of times anime plots just seemingly go off the rails and you just kind of have to write it. So if you're not hung up on straight narrative stuff, you'll probably like this a little bit more. But it's gorgeously animated, and it's pretty interesting in terms of how it's all executed, but it just, narratively, it's kind of hard to grasp and settle into. But overall, it's a fun enough time. In this 4K release, I do have the old Blu-ray that I'd never gotten to because I picked it up in recent years and just hadn't got around to it. But it is a nice upgrade from that Blu-ray. This is a 4K in Dolby Vision, and it looks really nice and colorful. Kind of corrects some of the compression artifacts and stuff that you would find on the older Blu-ray for a more consistent, rich appearance. You get DTS tracks for both the English and Japanese audio tracks, so the English dub or the original Japanese. I believe that the Japanese audio on the previous Blu-ray was not in lossless audio. I believe it was a Dolby Digital lossy track. And it comes with a couple of featurettes and a Comic-Con panel. This is almost an ideal release for this one, but the main drawback for this one and the next one, but it seems to hit this one a little bit harder in terms of the impact of watching this, is there are only one set of subtitles on this one, and that is the English SDH subtitles. So that is for the English version of the movie. So there are dub titles. So if you're watching the Japanese version, the script is slightly different. So like even from the first scene, on the English version, you have some dialogue that's being spoken that if you switch over to the Japanese version, it's just not. It's just quiet during that portion, and then you eventually get to the Japanese audio. So you'll have subtitles on the bottom of the screen if you unless you speak Japanese, you have to have subtitles, but it's not matching, like it'll have subtitles for things that aren't being said on screen, so because the scripts aren't completely one-to-one. So that's a bit of a disappointment because I believe the previous Blu-ray had correct Japanese subtitles if you just put the Japanese audio on. But other than that, it's a good release, but if you want to watch it in Japanese, you will have a bit of a hard time in terms of the STH subtitles, the dub titles that are being included on here. Otherwise, it's a pretty good release. But the sequel, which picks up right after Batman Ninja, it's a much more entertaining movie in my opinion. It still has a bonkers plot, but it kind of refines everything and makes it a little bit more pleasant. You have kind of takes on the Justice League like counterparts, like you have like your version of Aquaman and Green Lantern, and the Flash and Wonder Woman over here, and everything just kind of worked better for me in terms of like, yes, they're back in a alternate world Japan trying to fix like some time variances that occurred from the first movie, and it's action-packed, really interesting. I was surprised by how much I liked Yakuza League in terms of it being an upgrade from the first outing. I think they learned some good lessons and they did a nice job with Yakuza League. I've actually had this for a couple of months now, but I was waiting for the Batman Ninja to come out, and there needed to be a replacement disc for this. So if you got this early, you might want to check and see if you have lossless audio, because the original audio tracks were lossy Dolby Digital tracks, and they should have been lossless. And there was a replacement program that that Movie Zing and Warner Archive handled. So if you need a replacement disc, reach out to Movie Zing. It does have the same issues in terms of the only having one set of subtitles, the English SCH subtitles. But both the English and Japanese tracks are lossless audio DTS if you get the corrected disc. And looks really good in 4K Dolby Vision. I don't have a Blu-ray version of this to compare to, but overall it's a really, really nice 4K release, and I think it would probably yield the similar results as the other 4K releases, in which it's mostly good for refining color in Dolby Vision and eliminating some of the compression issues that are sometimes with these animated properties. This has 2 featurettes that are brief but interesting enough. But overall, good release for this one, but make sure you have the corrected disc. But if not, reach out to Movie Zing. So Batman Ninja versus Yakuza League and Batman Ninja. Each have their interesting moments. You just might have to ride the wave of insanity that is the plot of these two movies. But that is my show this week. I hope I have talked about something that interests you. If so, let me know in the comments. I always like to know what you're responding to and what interests you the most. If you have anything you want me to talk about, like I did with Novocaine on this episode, make sure to leave a comment and I will try to cover it on a future episode. Make sure you subscribe to Geek Vibes Nation YouTube channel and everything. Share this with anyone that you know loves physical media, because I love sharing my love of physical media with you, and I appreciate everyone who watches this week after week. Thank you so much. I will be back again next week, but until next time, enjoy these movies.